Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Sober Speak. At Sober Speak, you will find podcasts of men and women sharing their experience centered around the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 Steps of Recovery. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and I will be the host of this episode. Consider this, Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. We're not really out to replace meetings, but we can supplement meetings for when you can't get there. And I have my friend Gary C. here with me today, and I asked Gary to read something that's kind of special to him. He's picked something out of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, from what page is it from?
100.
Gary? Page 100, and Gary's going to read this real quick.
Okay, yeah, it's out of chapter 7, Working with Others. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances.
That's a heck of a promise. Thank you, Gary. We welcome all of your comments, and you can contact us in a couple of different ways. You can go to SoberSpeak.com and simply click on the Contact Us tab, or you can email us directly at feedback@SoberSpeak, that's all one word, .com. We not only welcome your feedback, but highly encourage it. In fact, we would like to hear from you, any sort of comments, any sort of suggestions that you may have. I'll even take suggestions on somebody else who maybe should be someone that you may suggest that should be on the program. We could talk about that. But anyway, we look forward to hearing from you. Sober Speak is self-supporting through our own contributions. We are not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. We do not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorse nor oppose any causes.
Please remember, we do not speak for any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want, leave the rest at the curb.
Perfect. Thank you, Gary. All right, so we're going to dive right into this, just so everybody out there. Oh, by the way, I did mean to say that you can access the Sober Speak podcast at YouTube now as well. You can access them on Alexa. Believe it or not, you just go up to your Alexa and say, "Hey Alexa, play Sober Speak podcast," and it'll crank it right up. And then there's all the usual suspects like iTunes and Google Play and things of that nature. But nonetheless, all right. So I know Gary not real well. We have a mutual friend who we both know very well, but I wanted to have Gary over, do the podcast here, and get to know Gary a little bit more. So first of all, Gary, why don't you go ahead and give your sobriety date?
It's December 27th, 1984.
So that's a little while, Gary. That's fantastic. How many? So just help me with my math there. That's
33.
33. Well, in fact, you were at. So we're for those of you listening in faraway lands. We're here in the Dallas area. We have something called the Gathering of the Eagles. Why don't you tell folks what the Gathering of the Eagles is? I believe you went there yesterday, right?
Yeah, I was just there. It's a conference. I think Searcy was a big part of that, or started it.
And for those who don't know who Searcy is, it's Searcy.
Yeah,
Searcy, right?
Searcy. He was, I think, one of the founding members of the Gathering of the Eagles, if not the founding member. And he's a long-term, kind of a Texas sober legend guy, and he I think he started the White House group in East Dallas, well respected. I actually was at his funeral. I think it was probably maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I'm not sure when it was exactly, but Searcy was just kind of an old school AA guy. You got to sit with guys like I think Clifford W. from Olive Branch, Mississippi. I think it was Clifford, an old guy, and then of course Bill. And he would meet and sit with and kind of learn the original culture of AA from the founding members. So it's CRC goes way back.
Yeah. And so why is it called the Gathering of the Eagles? Is the Eagles supposed to be kind of like sages, so to speak? What is that?
I think the Eagles is, there was a lot of emphasis on the guys that were old timers.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Okay.
And I think I'll just say it was that there's been some opinions about, really we should be focusing on the newcomers and not the guys with all this sobriety, which I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
There should be emphasis on the new guys, and really pushing the newcomer. But somewhere along the way, there was somebody that was passionate about recognizing long-term sobriety and how we stay together and what we're doing to stay sober with long-term sobriety too. Right. So having said that, that's my take on it.
I understand. And so you were there. Did you give some sort of talk?
Yeah, I gave it. They give. They have 0 to 10 years, but people that can share 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30, and then 30 to 50 year. People that are sober that long to share.
So you're like a newcomer on that end.
Yeah, exactly. Because I only have 33 years, and there's guys with 40, 45, even a guy with 49 years. And then some other people that were all scattered through that. So it was, it was nice. We was like 5 minutes. Usually they do 10, but there were so many people that they cut it down to 5 minutes.
So did they give you a particular topic to focus on?
Yeah, the topic was, how we're using the steps to say in our life on a daily basis.
Well, let's talk about that on the podcast here then.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
So can you give us a rough sketch of what you talked about there during the?
As we were kind of talking about earlier, I tried to stay focused on what they were asking us to talk about, which it seems like an easy thing to do, but from what my experience was yesterday and hearing some of the other people talk, they wanted to just go up and share in general about how their day was going or whatever, and how their general sobriety has gone, instead of really focusing on what they were asked to talk about,
right.
Which was how the steps are working in your life.
Okay, well, let's talk about that with you. So if I were to ask you, in essence, how are this? So let's think about a newcomer out there, right, who may be listening to this for. What would you say? Could you, kind of summarize that? How would you say the steps are working in your life? I know it's hard to wrap that up in a few minutes, but just in general, what comes to mind for you?
I think that and that answer to that question has changed. I would have to go through a filter at certain times of my sobriety, but now, which is really the only thing that matters, is I think that just being useful, to keep my thoughts in kind of like our 10th step and 11th step talks about, we resolutely turn our thoughts to others when we're not always on the beam. We call someone else, or we talk to God and ask for forgiveness if necessary, and we resolutely turn our thoughts to somebody that we can help. So having said that, coupled with this new person, it's like, well, what am I here to do? So I was given this gift of the obsession being removed when I was on December 27th. I got on my knees and I said, God, if you're there, please help me. Many people have done that. I haven't had the obsession to drink since then. Now, that was a gift to me.
Yeah.
I feel. So what am I going to do with that gift? So that gift has been to be available, to be helpful, to be there for the newcomer. And that's not always convenient, and it's not always exciting, not always fun. So it's interesting yesterday, that being the topic of what does the steps look like in my life, I had to reflect on what my day looked like, just that day, which was yesterday. And the first thing I did, other than my usual morning stuff, I said some prayers and I meditated for a few minutes. I went and met a new guy who's got about 45 days at the IHOP in Terrell. And we sat down and talked about where he was at with steps 2 and 3. And we read some things, and of course we had our books at the table, and people were walking by, and the books they're not extremely anonymous, even though they say anonymous on there. But so we were, that's what it's all about. I think I seem to be the most at peace and the most comfortable with myself when I'm working with somebody new.
Right.
And I'm certainly not an expert or do it more than most people by any means. But I pray to continue to be willing to help others.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. So I want to touch on this a little bit. I know that I want to kind of go back in your history now. Right now we were talking about yesterday, and I'm going to go way back here now, right?
Yeah.
To where I believe you were an entertainer of sorts back in the day.
Yeah, I started in the nightclub scene back in the the early 80s. Actually 79, 80. I was still in high school. I had a fake ID, Southern California, and I started doing 50s impersonations, mainly Jerry Lee Lewis.
Well, wait, okay, so you're doing a Jerry Lee Lewis impersonation in 1980 and now you were what, 18 years old?
I was 18.
Okay.
I had a fake ID at 17, so I was 18 when I started doing that.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here looking at you now. You have a resemblance to Jerry Lee Lewis.
I hope it was the younger one.
Yeah, yes.
It wasn't the 80-year-old version, right?
No, not at all. I'm just, and even the way you cut your hair a little bit and
right.
stuff. So,
yeah.
So how do you get in that business, being a Jerry Lee Lewis impersonator?
I started listening to music, and I love the music, and this, of course, Sun Records, the history of Elvis and Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison and Jerry Lee Lewis. Those guys were like my musical heroes. So I had another guy that really had kind of the same interests, and we started kind of auditioning, and we'd go to nightclubs, and I was trying to be an actor too, so I had an agent. And so, but to fill in the gaps at night, to make some money, I'd go enter talent contests, dance contests, impersonation contests, and I landed a permanent gig every weekend on Friday and Saturday night at a place called The Hop.
The Hop?
Actually, The Hop was the second place. The Happy Days, I know, goes right in, falls right in with the show and also the 50s scene. But I was working for this guy named Jack Wade at a place called Happy Days, and every Saturday night, Wolfman Jack would come in there.
Really?
The famous DJ.
Wolfman
Yeah, absolutely.
Jack?
Jack Wade had paid Wolfman Jack to come in and spin records for about 2 hours on a Saturday night.
Was he famous at this point?
Yeah. Wolfman Jack goes back to the 50s, so he was absolutely famous, and that was a big draw for the club.
Yeah,
because Wolfman Jack's going to be here.
Yeah.
So now
there's a song about. There's a Wolfman song.
Is there really?
Sing. Yeah. There's a. Oh, anyway, forgive me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He was a legend, great voice, of course, great radio personality for many, many years. And anyways, he would come in and he would actually introduce us on Saturday nights, which was which was fun.
You were introduced by Wolfman Jack to do your Jerry Lee Lewis impersonation,
and that was probably, I'm going to say, 1981.
What were you called?
Just Jerry. We were just Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis. I did a duet with another guy.
Okay,
he would do Elvis, I do Jerry Lee Lewis. We would do hits like he would do Hound Dog and Blue Suede Shoes, and I would do Great Balls of Fire and Whole Lot of Shaking.
Could you play the piano?
No.
Okay.
I couldn't play. I mean, I took piano lessons. My mom.
Did you fake like you were playing?
We faked like we were playing pianos. What we did was we did a lot of dance incorporated. So we did 50s. I brought a girl out. I'd swing dance, and then I would lip sync, and we do this. And I'd act like I'm playing the piano. It was kind of a variety act.
Okay.
And incorporated with the lip syncing was part of that. So, anyways, we did that, and at the time, relating that to my drinking is that I had a free drink tab.
Oh,
so I was able to drink for free, and they paid us $100. I remember that.
And 18 was the age back then, right?
Yeah, I don't remember. I want to say it was 21 in California.
Okay.
That was in California.
Okay,
so
right.
I think it was 21.
But you'd still get free drinks. They weren't checking it.
Well, they thought I was 21.
Ah.
Yeah, they were paying me cash. It was
Okay, right.
And then I went from there. I went to another place called the Hop, which was owned by the Righteous Brothers.
Really?
Yeah, the Righteous Brothers. Bill Medley opened up a place in Fountain Valley, California. It's basically Huntington Beach, called the Hop. When Bobby Hatfield was still alive, the other half of the Righteous Brothers, he was there, and they would come in, and people would come from all over to go to this place, and it was people that were my parents' age.
Yeah, yeah.
So at the time, I'm 20, 19, 18, 21, around there. And there's people coming in there that are 40, 45. They're my parents' age because they went to high school in the 50s and 60s, and so they related to it.
Right.
So they paid us. That led to a Dick Clark.
Well, you must have been very. I mean, you can't get into these shows and be introduced by the Wolfman and all that sort of stuff on a consistent basis if you're not really good at what you're doing. So apparently, you guys were fairly talented.
Yeah, we were. I mean, I thought we were. It's hard to say. Yeah, I'm really talented. How do you say that? But I thought I was, and we were, and of course, the Righteous Brothers show led to a guy that was a scout for Dick Clark. Dick Clark Productions did a show called Solid Gold Hits.
Called what?
Solid Gold. You remember the original Solid Gold, of
course. Yeah.
That was back 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
Well, Solid Gold in the early 80s, they started one called Solid Gold Hits, and it was an impersonation show.
Okay.
And so this guy found me through my agent or whatever, and I went and auditioned, and I did a Jerry Lee Lewis audition, and got on the show, and ended up winning. It was like a talent show, kind of like an American Idol kind of, America's Got Talent kind of thing. So I went on there and did this. I remember I went up against Gladys Knight and the Pips.
Was it the real?
No, of course not.
So
it's an impersonation show.
Right.
So I went on there doing that, and I ended up winning $500 and a gold record, which was kind of cool. The gold record's cool just for nostalgia, but to have a check written to you by Dick Clark, to me was really, really
very
neat
cool
thing. So, and then, but anyways, that's a kind of the beginning, and a whole lot of drinking and the beginning.
Okay, so this is when the drinking started to pick up. So you were 18, 19, right 20, in this area, right? What age did you start drinking?
I was 13.
Okay.
13.
And was it on a consistent basis?
No.
Okay.
Junior high weekends.
Right.
I was drinking on weekends at wherever the kids go to hide and drink, and I was smoking some pot. Nothing too crazy.
Was this all in California or Texas?
Everything in California.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so when did you make so take me a little bit forward here then. When did you make it to Texas, and when did the drinking start to become more of a, as opposed to just fun, more of a problem?
I would say the drinking really got bad in 1982, the end of 1982. Daily drinker for sure, blackout drinker, always got in trouble, in and out of jail. A lot of other trouble that was related to that regarding drugs and doing some crazy stuff. I got sober.
And so we can go off the path here a little bit.
Okay.
I know within AA we don't, we're kind of like a singleness of purpose, but here at Sober Speaking, kind of a little bit more lax. So I'm assuming you were into another arena there when you.
Yeah, I try and I'm glad you said that, because I try and I've had my own personal challenges with staying on track with the singleness of purpose in AA, and so, but with this, I got into drugs like a lot of guys. It was the 70s, right. 80s, early 80s and late 70s in California.
Was it just using, or were you dealing?
Yeah, I started dealing in 1983 and get turned in. To me, it started out as very innocent, make a little extra money,
right.
have people like me, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that turned into a little more than I really had planned on. And I was hanging out with some guys that were not real. I say I'm hanging out with them. They're selling me cocaine. Some Bolivian guys that I had met at a dance at a nightclub. And, one thing led to another, and I'm dealing cocaine for these guys, and I'm entertaining, and life is good. I've got, when you have cocaine in the 80s in California, in Southern California, and you're doing this entertaining stuff, you got a lot of friends. People kind of want to know you, and probably more because of the cocaine than anything else. But
I had Casey on a couple of weeks ago, and I know you know him. And Casey said, I started hanging out, and I never heard it put this word, a lower denomination of friends.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to put it.
Well, Casey, I think, he's probably the lowest you can get if you were to hang out with him. But this will give me reason for him to listen to this talk.
Yes, that's
just
right.
To dog him out.
We'll tell him his name is referenced.
Casey's reference. I love him, but But yeah, I was just really an innocent guy. My parents were good people. They're still married today. They're both still alive, and what a blessing that is. But
how many years have they been married?
They've been married 56 years.
That's a long time.
And so, but that back then it was just started out that way, and I think that's why I got sober so young. Is I had the help of now I can say I had the help of drugs and hitting a bottom earlier. Yeah. But I really did have a strong desire to not live that way anymore.
Right.
And that's what brought me to that desperation of being on my knees, Because even though I was raised, I was raised in the church, I was Episcopalian and go to church a lot. And, I believed in God. If you said, do you believe in God? I would say yes. Yeah. But did I pray? No. Did I go to church? No. In these later years of drugs.
So did you have any sort of conception of God coming into the program? Were you neutral? Did you have some sort of angst you had to work over, or what?
I didn't. There's a reference in our book that talks about it's almost better to have no God, I'm paraphrasing, than to have a God that you are uncomfortable with or kind of an angst with, and I didn't have that. I definitely was not an agnostic, but I definitely did not have a relationship with God.
Right.
But
so you were kind of in a neutral place.
Yeah, neutral would be great. Good way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, so you got here. You looks like you, and it looks. Did you go to high school in the Dallas area?
No. I got sober in California, and I was sober there for 10 years before I moved here.
Gotcha.
So in 1995, I'd met my ex-wife. I've been away from her for a while now, 11, 12 years. We met in California in 1994. She got pregnant in 95. We got married in 95. We moved to Texas. She has a big family, bigger family than me. I said, if you want to, this is the first grandchild for both our families, but you got a bigger family. If you want to move to Texas, I'd be happy to do that.
Gotcha.
I offered to do it, and I think, she was I think glad that I did, and I think she probably would have wanted to move here too. So we moved here in 95. She was pregnant 6 months. We had the baby, our first daughter at Presby in Dallas.
Yeah.
And
that's where my daughter was born.
Yeah.
So that's how you got here to Texas.
Yeah.
And so that was talk to me then about kind of coming into your first meeting, how you made that launch from non-sobriety to sobriety. Did it stick the first time? Were you in and out? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think I went during the early '84. My mother took me to some therapy. And she took me to. I had some shock treatment, light shock treatment at the time.
And so that's very interesting. So let me talk about that a little bit. Shock treatment. So it probably was not like we see from the 1950s films where they go in and it looks like they had a lobotomy coming out. Correct.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you implying that you see something about me right now?
No, not at all. That's what I mean, because you're not like that at all.
I know.
So, for those, I don't meet a lot of people who have had any sort of shock therapy, right? So I'm interested in that. Tell me about that experience, what it was like coming out of it.
It's really terrible. I'll tell you what, it's really, really bad. My mother took me to this doctor who actually did some hypnotherapy on my father, because my dad was a bad alcoholic.
Okay. And by the way, when you went to the doctor, just so we know, what was the goal of the therapy and the doctor? What was going on?
Cocaine abuse and alcoholism.
Okay.
And my mom took me there. I don't think there was really necessarily a look at this kid is traumatized or has a past that is so terrible that we need to address that. It was more alcohol, drugs, please help him.
Gotcha.
So
So it was they were employing a methodology to hopefully help you with your alcoholism and your drug addiction, all with good intentions, I'm sure, and the doctors were. So, yeah. But so go through the experience, though.
I went in there and I talked. I remember it was just a simple questionnaire, what I was doing. I told them, and I think they may have done some hypnotherapy on me, But I remember they did some light shock treatment, and I was actually talking to my mother about it recently, reliving that. It was very emotional.
And so, just out of curiosity, the physical part of that, do they actually hook something?
Yeah, they
up
do.
to your
They do, but it's they do hook up wires and like they used to.
electrodes or something?
Yeah,
like
but it's nothing like what you would see, like you mentioned, the 50s or anything like that,
Right.
where your body's shaking and
Right.
you're there for. It's a lot different than that. Now it's. I remember it was emotional. I mean, I started crying.
Oh, really?
I really was. It just never seemed right at all.
Okay.
Nothing about shock treatment at the time that it was happening or before or after seemed right at all.
Okay.
It never seemed right. It was a mistake. And you don't hear about it. Nobody's doing that now. Nobody's doing shock treatment.
Right. Oh, okay. So, but it did cause an emotional wave within you. It did tap into, touch into your soul somehow there, or your.
Yeah, I think
don't
it
wanna
was
say
more.
your soul, but
It was. I think it was more. It was something. I think you're right. You absolutely did something because it brought up all these emotions, and it maybe the emotions that I couldn't really identify then, what I was feeling. Maybe it was that. Okay, I really do have a problem if I'm at the point of this happening.
right.
Shock treatment is terrible,
Right.
and it's really such an archaic it just like what is the goal, like they're going to shock the alcoholism out of your body,
Right,
well,
like
we
this.
both know that that's not
Right.
really going to happen.
Well, so that was the goal. Did it help?
I don't think that helped at all personally.
Okay.
Now,
I mean,
did
did
I
you
stay
quit-
sober?
That's what I mean. Did
Not
you
after
stay-
that, no.
Right,
No.
okay.
That didn't. So it didn't affect me to stay sober. Matter of fact, I remember thinking
Made it worse.
It did. I think I want to get away from this feeling as soon as possible.
Okay.
This isn't like a feeling of hope. Like the shock
no.
treatment is not set up to where you can go, oh my God, I feel closer to God, and now I know people love me.
Oh, no.
No, it was terrible. It was really. It was similar.
So it dredged up feelings that you wanted to drown, and you went back to the alcohol.
Please take me away from this. That shock treatment was terrible, really bad. And even as light as it was, it was emotional and terrible. My mom was really angry with the doctor.
Really?
And she never took me back there again.
Yeah, because she could see you going downhill after.
She could see that I was, it upset me. It didn't help. I wasn't going to open up and say, oh my God, please help me with my drugs and alcohol. It was like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
Take away the pain, which I know how to do that.
Right.
Alcohol and drugs.
Okay.
It's quick and easy.
All right, so how long was that before you actually ended up getting into Alcoholics Anonymous?
About a year.
About a year? Okay,
Yeah.
so what happened? So take me through that year then.
I went through I was in pretty bad shape. I'd losing weight because of the cocaine, always drinking, I'm really unhealthy. Went into my mother, mom and dad wouldn't let me come to their house. They wouldn't even let me there. They said, you're a risk to the property, you're a risk to coming here. So,
what do you mean a risk to the property?
it was
Like you're gonna steal
yeah,
stuff?
I could steal something,
Right,
or
okay.
people were after me, and could have warrants, and it's endless on what kind of risk I could be at the house. So please don't come out. And so she actually saw me walking, and she had a plan. My mom was in Al-Anon before I got sober.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so this was in the summer of '84 during the Olympics in LA. Uh-huh. And
did she go there because of you, by the way, or was there other alcoholism around the family?
Oh, no, my dad is an alcoholic. He's been sober, though, for a long time.
Gotcha, okay.
Grandpa died of alcoholism.
Gotcha, okay.
And my aunt and uncle.
So your mom was there, and she recognized these signs when they started to come up.
Oh,
in
yeah,
you.
she knew him
Okay.
way before, yeah. And,
Okay.
and she just couldn't, she'd already bailed me out of jail many times, and a lot of things had happened up to that point in the summer of '84. And she had a little plan for me, but she found me somewhere. And I remember she picked me, opened the car, and I got in. She goes, we're going to take a little drive. And I said, oh, okay. I was like, kind of glad, but not really. But I didn't have anywhere to really go at that time. Mm-hmm. And I'd already lost my car and lost a bunch of stuff. And so I was really desperate. I remember getting in the car, and she drove me to rehab, a place called Coast View Memorial. Residential treatment, like Betty Ford model, 30 days. At that time, it was people that were in there were usually in there for roughly the same thing. It was cocaine, alcohol.
Yeah.
80s California,
Yeah.
And so I went in there. I was there for 30 days. I never really did anything. I wasn't on board with it at all.
You just weren't ready.
I wasn't ready as much as I was dying.
Yeah.
But I wasn't I didn't have the desperation of a dying man, but I was dying. You know.
Did you think you were powerless over alcohol, or that you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha.
No. So I got out of there, and they said, "Do everything."
And you were starting to talk about the Olympics a second ago. Did I get you off track? Was that
No.
what you were going to say?
My mom was working on the Olympic committee, and she was busy with that. She took time to, to get me, find me, and take me to treatment. And looking back on what I put them through, and how it makes it easier to never complain if they ever ask for something.
Yeah.
I think back on those times and the things I put them through. And to fly, 5,000 miles to go visit them is no problem,
Right.
So she got me in there. And
Did you say 5,000 miles?
Yeah, they live in Hawaii, and I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating. I don't know.
No.
I think it's probably 5,000 miles.
I was doing math in my head to California, and I thought, well, wait a sec. I know.
No, they're living in Hawaii. They've been in Hawaii since 02 or 03, so they've been there quite a while. I'm guessing I don't know, maybe it's not 5,000, but I think it's probably at least,
that's a long way away.
I don't know how far. I know it's 8 hours.
Right.
8 hours from Dallas, so I don't know, it might be 4.
Well, if they ever get to listen to this in Hawaii, aloha.
Yeah, aloha.
It's interesting. I want to tell you this. I see some stats from SoberSpeak every once in a while, and I can tell you that there's only 9 states in the United States that this has not been listened to in, and Hawaii is one of them. So hopefully we can break that trend. You can send this to your parents.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be good. We got to fill all the states up. Come on.
All right. So they took you to treatment.
Yeah, she got me treatment. On board. I was on board, stayed there 30 days, didn't try and leave, but I wasn't ready. I didn't do the things they had asked when I got out of there. I will say that a guy named Miles Evans showed up. He had a couple years sober. He was a friend. My mother had a girlfriend, and it was her brother. And he was sober in the program. And he was doing what good members of Alcoholics Anonymous do. He showed up there, heard that I was there, reached out to me and said, "My name's Miles. I'm in AA. If you need some help, I'm willing to help you." And he's just doing service. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, that's great."
And once again, this was your mother's...
My mom's friend's brother.
Brother. Okay, gotcha.
To me, it was a God. I mean, it was another God thing.
I understand.
I mean, come on. The guy shows up there at the end of the thing. Now, I wasn't ready and I wasn't willing, but here's what happened. The magic of him showing up, and here's what I think it's so great for me to learn and for everybody to learn as we get sober a long time, as we look back on the way things happen.
Right, how they came
the
together.
step by step things that are formed through just a selfless act of him showing up there for me.
Right.
He introduced himself, gave me his number, and I didn't really call him. I wasn't ready. But the magic of that is that I was out on the street 6 months. After that, I didn't get sober till later in December. From that summer until December, it was coming up with the end. And finally on December 27th, I said, "I'm done. God, if you're there, please help me." What helped me so much in the beginning, now I'm willing. God's removed the obsession. Mm-hmm. I called Miles. Mm-hmm. He was my guy.
Right.
I didn't know anyone else. Right. I said, "Miles, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything you want me to do." Right. And he said, "I'll pick you up," and done. He took me to a meeting. That's been it. That's the beginning, the end. He sponsored me for years, and
he's still with us?
Oh yeah, he's still sober. Still, I speak with him, a couple times a year. I visit him in Long Beach when I go to meetings. He's sober about 35, 36 years, and he's still doing the deal. But I think the value in that for people that are new is to think about when you're ready. I was able to kind of think back who can help me now. Mm-hmm. And that guy, he just planted that little seed. Mm-hmm. So knowing that he could help and he was willing to help, coupled with my willingness, and I had a thought that I've never done the program. Mm-hmm. I've been in rehab and I'd gone to meetings before, but I'd never done the program.
You got a $20,000 big book?
Yeah, actually 30, but it was 30, which is $1,000 a day, And so I think that the thought was a gift from God, and that thought was that I never worked the steps. I never worked the program. I'd been in AA a little bit. I'd gone to meetings. I went to rehab, and it was a 12-step, based program, and I never really did the program, and that helped me to understand that they gave me hope.
Yeah.
So maybe I can do this, since I never really did it before, and I really never really applied myself. And that, coupled with the guy that's sober, going to meetings, and just my sponsor, God, I'm good.
Yeah.
So,
isn't it interesting how we all have like a story of how we made it into the program and the little bits and pieces that went together, and you can go back and, like you said, you can look back and see, wow, look at how that all came together. That is absolutely incredible. But in the time, you're just trying to keep the wolves at bay, so to speak.
Yeah.
And just try to stay sober a day at a time. So you went to the meeting, and you remember much about your first meeting? Anything particular?
Oh yeah,
stand
no,
out?
it was a huge deal. I remember everything about it. We drove down to Newport Alano Club in Newport Beach, and it was a meeting, and it was a big meeting, and it was 60, 80 people. I don't remember exactly, but it was, it was just I was willing to go to any length. I was ready to take the steps, and I would have done anything you told me to do, but there was still this image, I still felt like I had to look good on some level.
Yeah.
And which is, to me, is one of the most hilarious things that we could have, because we're in AA.
Right. How ironic.
It's AA. How do you look good in AA?
Right.
Or CA or any.
And it's like when you walk into the room and you see somebody who and you're all scared about it, and well, what are they doing here?
Yeah,
right?
It's like the same. So I went to that meeting, and I remember somehow I had some money on me, and I don't know where it came from, because I was pretty broke. But I remember they passed the basket, and I put a $50 bill in the basket, thinking that would.
In 1983, that's
I remember putting a 50. So I was broke, trust me. But somebody gave me some money they owed me, or something happened. I had this wad of cash on me. I remember putting a $50 bill in the basket. And the guy that I was sitting next to said he knew I was new. And he kind of saw, he was a wise guy, didn't really say much. And I remember he was sitting on the other side of my sponsor, and he said, you don't have to put that much in here. And that was kind of his humble way of saying, look, buddy, we don't need.
It's not about the money.
We don't need your.
You're
money.
not going to impress anybody.
You're not going to impress us.
Cash, right?
We got more money, and this is a club they have literally people would ride their yachts up. On one side,
right?
So we had homeless, and we had people with yachts,
right?
And everything in between. So anyways, that was my first meeting. I've been going since, and it's been a great ride, but.
I had heard you tell a story once about being in a hotel, and so it made me kind of think about the things that people struggle with, and getting in here, and I believe you said something about being at gunpoint, if I'm not mistaken. And so, can you go into that story a little bit, because I thought that was very intriguing.
Well, I was sober. Casey Walters held a gun to my head in a meeting. No, I'm kidding. Back to Casey. No, I owed these guys some money, and it was a typical. I didn't have any really intention.
Was this from the drug?
Yeah, this is a drug stuff.
Were they the Bolivian guys?
Oh yeah.
They were the Bolivian.
This is Bolivian guys, and
So note to self: don't deal with Bolivian guys.
I don't know that it really matters
nightclubs.
On what. Yeah, don't deal
that
with
have cocaine.
That would be a good thing to start with. I don't know that it really matters what country they're from.
Right, I'm just saying.
I know
if you put the three together,
it's probably a bad comp.
Yeah,
for sure.
Just
and you don't. The main thing with that is that you want to make sure and pay them. That's really the main thing if you're going to do that. And it's not good to not pay them, and it's definitely not good to not pay them and then not communicate with them, which is what I was doing. But what happened was I got into a robbery. I was given some money to go get some cocaine for a guy, and I got followed, not knowing it. And where I went, they didn't have cocaine in my guy's house where he lived. Never had any drugs there. He's not that stupid. He had whole other operation, whatever. Anyways, there was a lot of money that was in this house, and they ended up getting the money. The guy that robbed me, and it was a scary situation. I got a gun pulled that night, and then I never once stopped and said, maybe I need to rethink my life, or maybe I need to stop doing what I'm doing. I just kind of thought, well, these guys are the ones that are crazy. I mean, I'm not, and I wasn't crazy on that level, but I was crazy to think and do what I was doing, to think and live the way I was living. But so a couple of weeks went by, they found me and took me to a motel out in Paramount. And
it's Paramount, a city in California.
Yeah, it's a city in California. They held me at gunpoint there and basically said, if you don't pay us, we're going to kill you. And it was a lot of threats and that kind of stuff. And it was pretty scary. And I think the significance of that story is from the time that I left, and this is probably what I shared when you heard it before. Maybe it was the time I left that, and I'm scared. I'm not a guy. I never carried guns. I've never robbed anybody. Never did anything. Never had a gun. And so I wasn't that guy that was a kind of a hardcore dude. So it was when I got out of that motel room. I was scared to death, and I remember thinking, God, please help me get out of this thing. I thought they're going to kill me. I walked over to the payphone, and from the time I had left, being in there for a couple days at gunpoint to a payphone, that 5 or 10 minutes, I had completely forgot about what had happened.
Right.
We can't remember with sufficient force.
That's correct.
I couldn't remember that period. I blocked it out. And the reason I think that we don't want to remember with sufficient force what happened a day or even a week is that we want to blot that out, and hopefully we can find a way to control and enjoy our drinking.
Right.
Is really the deal.
Right. We want to continue that lifestyle.
We want to do it,
Right.
And so I called my buddy. I said, "Come over and please give me a ride." And he came out and got me. And we were on a run, and there we go. So, I was lucky to make it through that alive. And I think they knew that I didn't have anything to do with the money disappearing, so it was a challenging. It was a pivotal moment in my life for sure, but it didn't stop me from, drinking.
Okay, my friend, I'm going to turn a corner on you here a little bit. You get to be the first participant in a Wheel of Fortune spinning topic thing that I have created here. It took me a long time, 15 minutes or so, to create this game, okay? And so for you, what I'm going to ask you to do is to pick do you want to talk about either a step or a topic? One of those two.
Let's go step.
You're going to go step? Okay, so I need to go. So I'm on the topic screen here. So let me go back to the name sets is what they call this here. We're going to go with step. All right, so so you can see this wheel that I have here?
Yeah.
You see? I'm going to spin this wheel, and whatever step it lands on, I'm going to let you talk about.
Well, this
okay?
is cool.
Yeah, kind of cool. All right, ready? Watch. And wow. It's actually spinning, folks, and it lands on step 3. So you get to talk about your experience with step 3.
I'm not really familiar with that. What is it? Can you read it to me?
So just for the folks who are listening at home who may not know what that is, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So what was your experience step 3?
Of course, it's changed a lot. In the beginning, aspects of it have changed. The step is the same, but I think in the beginning it was really a solid commitment to trust and go on with the rest of the steps. That prayer, that third step prayer. Go ahead. Were you gonna?
Yeah. So you said trust and go on with the rest of the steps.
Yeah.
I kind of go into that a little bit more, especially for those people. I mean, you know the steps, I know the steps, but for those folks who maybe don't know the steps as well, and they're listening to this and they go, oh, "What do you mean by that? Go on with the rest of the steps." So, take me through that.
I think, for me, it's been a solid, really a trust and a belief and a relationship and everything that I can think of that has to do with this loving God. If I really trust Him and believe in Him and know that He's got my back and He's got nothing but good for me, then that's going to be, I don't know of a better foundation than to go on to the fourth step.
But people struggle with that, don't
Yeah.
they? In other words, when you say talk about giving your will into your life over to the care of God as you understand Him, those are words, but people hear them and it kind of freaks them out a little bit, right? They get scared, and the reason they get scared is, why do you think they get scared?
I think it's based on, and it's right in our book too. I love what our book says. I love it. I can't possibly say it any better, and I won't try. But I will say that their past experience with a God that they once knew. For example, Earl Hightower last night got in a plane crash. Mom and dad died. Daughter or sister died. He watched them die in front of him. He got to live. They died. His thing was, and I'm sharing his story, but it's a good thing.
I understand.
It's it was, how can I possibly believe in a God that would do this kind of horrific thing to my family? So the people that say, well, if God's going to take my family, what kind of God is that? So I think there's a lot of
and if God's in control, I turn on CNN or Fox News or whatever the
Right.
case may be, and I'm watching those news programs. Why is all this happening, right?
Yeah, so, the thing that we have in our program, which is, I would say, I'm going to say it's probably one of our most attractive, attribute. It's so attractive to me in the world we live in, especially today, to say, you get to pick the God, your own concept. You get to pick. God as you understand Him. And there's no judgment on that. So it's not a Catholic God or a Christian God. It's not a Buddhist. It's not a Krishna, or and Allah. It's you get to pick. So that gives the people, lets them off the hook a little bit as far as what God that they, we're not gonna regulate or judge the God that you believe in. But I think, and I think what another thing that we have is that no matter how small of a God that you might have, tiny, it's sufficient for a start, like our book says.
Right.
It's sufficient for a start. Whatever you think, if you're willing to believe that there's something, then that's sufficient. And I think we need to push more of that, or share more of that.
Right.
We really do.
And like you said in the beginning, it's really a commitment to work the rest of the steps. It's the launching pad to say, okay, I'm going to do a fourth step. I'm going to do a fifth step. I'm going to go through the amends process. I know you only do it one step at a time, but it is the start of that, and it's a commitment to make that all happen. So just because I want to see how well this game works again, I'm now going to do you a topic, right? So I got 12 topics as well. Right? And so we're going to spin this here and see where it lands. Mr. Gary, you ready?
Right. This is awesome.
Yeah. We're spinning and it lands on Turning Point. So we may have already addressed this in some form or fashion, but anything you want to add to, did you have some sort of specific period of time, or actually some particular day and time where you could consider it your turning point, or have you had many turning points throughout sobriety? Talk about what you would consider a turning point for you in sobriety.
The number one turning point that I'll always have in my life, number one bar none, would be the turning point of getting on my knees. Prior to that, not being able to quit drinking. Mm-hmm. No power. I can't control it, and I cannot stop drinking and doing cocaine. Mm-hmm. Getting on my knees, asking God, if you're there, please help me. And then from there on, I have no desire, and the obsession has been removed. That's the number one turning point. Now, the turning point of being willing to take the steps and how that's going to change me and how that's going to really keep me sober was another turning point. It's like, I've been given this gift now, the obsession's gone, but what am I going to do to keep it? What am I going to do to make sure this doesn't just go away? And what if I woke up 2 weeks later and I feel like drinking?
Right.
What am I going to do? So, that was a turning point, that realization, which was actually between steps 8 and 9, right when I was making my list and I went to share it, I could make that list, but going out and meeting people directly was, man, that's a big deal. And there's no wonder we have all these promises right after that. Now, there's promises before, but the promises that come after the 9th step, that's where the real big freedom starts. And so that was a huge turning point going, hey, man, this might be, if I don't do this, I may not stay sober because I can't live with the heavy weight and the heavy burden of not making those things right.
Right.
And that stuff happened way before. I mean, if you go way before, biblical, it's just like way before Bill and Bob got together. You go back and you make stuff right, and it's not about saying sorry, it's about changing and doing that deal. But the other turning point, the only other really turning point that comes to mind off the top of my head was I was about 4 years sober and I was really angry, and I felt like I was resting on my laurels. I didn't realize that then, but looking back, I was resting on my laurels. I really wasn't. I was angry, and I realized a really cool thing happened. A guy said, "Hey, we're going to this dance, this AA dance," and I was like, "Oh God, that sounds terrible. Like, how do you go to a dance? There's no booze, Well, I was 4 years sober."
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, it's gonna be fun. There's gonna be girls there," and I was kind of excited. Okay, there's girls there. I'll go for that. And he goes, "And there's gonna be a speaker there, this guy Johnny H." And I said, "Oh, I don't know anything about him. Whatever. I heard about him, but some old guy, no big deal." Johnny Harris was, he said some things when he told his story that I really related to, and that really catapulted me into a program of really seeing the AA program within the AA program, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then getting deep. And I heard him say some things, and one of the things, I'm 4 years sober, this is almost 30 years ago. And I remember he said, when I get scared, I get mad at it. Fear for me is getting mad at it when I'm afraid. And I understood that because that's how I was raised with my dad. When my dad was afraid, he got mad. And so I related so much to that. And I thought, God, what's underneath that? And of course, all the anger stuff was, I was just scared to death.
Right.
So I had to look at that and deal with that and inventory that and
Very nice.
and and then work with others.
Very nice.
So that would be a big turning point in my sobriety.
Good. All right. Well, we're at the end of the time here. Is there anything else you want to add before I kind of add some closing statements here? I've really enjoyed having you in here. This has been
thank you.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it too. It flew by.
Yeah.
I hope it didn't drag for you.
No. It did not drag for me at all. We're 52 minutes into this,
Okay.
believe it or not.
We went over.
That's all right.
Do I owe you anything for that?
No, you owe me nothing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here, Gary. All right, so we welcome your thoughts and feedback. Please contact us at feedback@soberspeak.com, or just go right to the webpage, soberspeak.com, and click on the Contact Us page. We do, as I said in the beginning, want to make this a dialogue. If you have any suggestions, thoughts, ideas, topics you'd like me to cover, just make sure that you send those in. We invite you to share your experience, strength, and hope, and or provide suggestions or comments. I think I already said that. But anyway, thank you for your support in whatever form it comes, whether it's sharing the podcast with friends or just listening in as you are able. We realize we know only a little, and I'm going to read from you from page 164 on page 164 of the Big Book to close us out. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God, much like Gary was just talking about. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Keep coming back. It works as you work it. Take care, friends.